lost my committeeman. All right, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. And so the House met, and I guess what we would like to propose is on the definition, page 7 definition of public entity, that we retain the House position, the original, the House position that we came out of the House with, which includes the except that public entity does not include an entity receiving federal funding that by complying with subsection B of this section would lose that federal funding. We'd go on down and we would like to keep the House position on C. Moving on down, keep the House position on D as it flips over to page 8. So House position on that. And then on House E, we would delete, we would recede the House E, and we would ask that the Senate recede from Senate E. And so that would be kind of our proposal on section 2.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
might I ask, on page 7, line 4, is it necessary to insert the word "or applying for" in there? Or is that putting too fine a point on it?
I'm not, one is it, I don't care. It is if it's, as long as it's between the,
Actually, no, because if they're receiving it,
they are,
they're-
yeah, they already
Yeah,
applied.
I'm not worried about it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously, all the rest of, section 1, which was the findings, we're receding to whatever amendments you had there. We went over that earlier. And that would include the resolution. So that would be our proposal. Is there a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in,
Just to verify.
you bet.
Page 7,
Page, I'll go over
the
it again.
entirety of page 7 goes back to the House version.
The entirety of page 7 goes back to the House position.
And then page 8, we go back to the House position from 1 down to 11, and we strike, we go
No.
to House position 1 to 5,
Correct.
and we strike 7 to 11, and we also strike the Senate's version of E, so nobody gets an E.
Nobody gets any, Senator.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to gum this up too much, but one concern I had was in B, we talk about, so we're having some conversations about paragraph C, and I don't like how wordy it is. It says, to the extent that this section conflicts with a federal law, regulation, rule, standard, or order. So I asked LSO, can't we just say mandate? And they said, well, we'd need to define it somewhere. I said, okay. But then if you go back up to paragraph B on line 8, what we're prohibiting is no public entity shall enforce any mandate or standard. Okay, so that's the narrow scope of what we're fighting. If Congress were to come in and say, you have to do COVID vaccine, we're limited, right? That's outside the scope of what we approved in 8, or in B. So with C, that's where it gets a little gummed up for me of how that works. So something to consider as an amendment to your amendment, perhaps, but I want some discussion on it first, is that language, law, regulation, rule, standard, or order. And just to have, for consistency's sake, keep it mandate or standard to be consistent with the language used in paragraph B. And then along those lines in paragraph D, going on to page 8, you'll see on line 1, that same federal law, regulation, rule, standard, or order. For consistency's sake, maybe consider mandate or standard. And I'd like some discussion on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll discuss.
Senator
I
Kinski.
think if we're going to get this thing done, the cleaner this language goes back to each floor, the better off we're going to be. The more markup we do on it, the harder it's going to be for people to get their heads around it at 7 o'clock at night.
Senator Kinski, I agree. I mean, if somebody wants to make an amendment to the motion that we have, that's fine. But otherwise, I think we just keep cruising.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we'll keep it as it is. I more or less just wanted that noted
Gotcha.
of yet another thing for us to think about. in the future.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, and I will repeat the motion. And so we are retaining all of the House position on page 7. On page 8, we're retaining the House position on lines 1 through 5. And we are receding the House position on our E, and the Senate is receding their position on E, their E. So,
And Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, then the House would also accept all other Senate amendments, correct?
we still haven't crunched out the number in the, we're still at that, what number we're at. So basically, section 1 through 2 will be completed. We've agreed on section 3. What we have not agreed yet upon, well, I'm going to finish the motion, okay?
Let's
So,
dispose of them.
yeah, the motion is, I'm not going to restate it again. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. So now, we agreed on section 3 already, the Ellis, Senator Ellis language. And now we are back on section 4, where we're at on the money. And I believe the last, we did not vote on, I don't believe we voted on the appropriation yet. Is that correct?
We did.
We did.
Did we? Okay, 4 million. All right. So,
Nice try.
dang it, I thought we could go down a little
The
bit on that.
Senate's okay with putting more money back.
No. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Kinsky.
so this language that we finally came up with between staff and Senator Ellis on that Romanet double little I. I saw some representatives of the governor's office that were their concerns assuaged on that as well?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for the governor's office, so.
I thought maybe Matt might have talked to them.
I think, one thing is we look at the language that we created in, let me find it here. The authorities that we gave the AG, we give her some fairly broad authorities. And I think the one question was, there's a program in the Access for Justice program, isn't that what it's called in the
Something
AG's
like that,
office?
yeah.
And, I think we're hoping that the language that was broad enough that maybe would allow her to be levying some money into that program to help citizens, because that program does help citizens.
I
So
see.
I think that's some of what we're hoping.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Are we
Are we at the
done?
point that we've agreed, and so it's a House bill, so you guys would drop the concurrence on this and then prevent it for signatures? Are we at that point in time?
Matt, are we ready?
Yeah, I think we'll just take a roll call on the JCC. As you
Okay.
agreed to it, Heather. will
All right.
comment on that.
All
And then-
those,
Or how about this? Let's, does somebody make the motion as to agree to the joint conference committee report as memorialized in the prior motions? And then LSO will draft those for your signatures.
so moved by Representative Greer, maybe? No? Swanitzer? So moved by Senator Kinsky. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Or does it require a roll call?
No.
Okay.
Just Senator, you're going to sign it anyway.
Motion
So-
carries.
So some people may sign it, some may not. We'll see what happens there.
All right, so we'll get that done and then we'll get it to you.
And we'll see the disposition